Okay, so let's say I'm ready to render out my project from After Effects and make it a video that I can put on a website, upload to YouTube, add to Premiere Pro so that it can create graphics for that program or my video projects. Then I need to actually render this entire project out. So what I have right now is a master comp called All Effects, and it has all of these pre-comps of different special effects that I've kind of animated and played with. So I want to render this into one video that has all 5 showing. In order to do this, I need to make sure that my work area is truly showing the area that I want to export. So if for some reason your work area is only showing, let's say, this much of the project, it's only going to export or render this much of the project, which could be really cool if you just wanted to show somebody, 30 seconds of a project that you're particularly working on. Then you don't want to have to render out the entire 10, 15 minute, heck, a whole hour of a movie out. You just want to show this particular part. But just be careful with that, because if you accidentally set the work area but then you want to render the full thing out, you need to extend that full work area. So once you're ready to go, we'll go up to File and then go down to Export and choose Add to Render Queue. You could also send it to an Adobe Premiere project. You can send it to Maxon Cinema 4D, and you could send it to Media Encoder. But for right now, the basic step is to do the render queue. Once you do that, it's going to bring up the render queue panel, and notice that I have already rendered out something previously. So I'll go ahead and click this previous version and click delete. I don't want to see that anymore, but the cool thing is I can render this out in many different versions, and I just need to set all of them up here. So it's going to say the render settings, it's going to choose the best settings, it's going to try to output as a lossless format, and it's going to try to give it the name of All Effects and put it where it needs to go. But for this instance, I don't want it to do the best settings because it's going to be a massive video file, especially because I'm on a Mac and it's going to try to export it in QuickTime animation codec. And that means it's absolutely lossless. They're going to be massive files, even though it's only a 30-second project. So for me, if you want to render this out at top quality, like you're at the very last stage of your project and you need this to go into like burn to a DVD or a Blu-ray disc, then you can leave it at best settings and lossless. If you're just giving a preview to somebody, then you probably want to change your settings. So we're going to do that here. Each of these blue words are clickable, so you can change different things. So for best settings, we can come up here and we can do a draft. If we're just sending this to somebody to show them a preview, it's not going to be as high quality, but they can see at least what's going on in the project. You can change the resolution. You can also change all these different options that I never mess with, but at least you know they're there. So I don't really ever go there. What I do is I actually go to this lossless and click on that, and I choose what format it's going to output. Now, if you're on a Mac, it automatically chooses QuickTime because that's the native format for Mac computers. If you're on a PC, it's going to change the format to AVI, which is the native format for PC computers. AVI is really old, and it doesn't have a codec called H.264, which is really good for internet video. And it has a really good balance between file size and quality. So we always want to export as H.264 if we're doing a preview or we need a smaller file size, or we need it to go on the internet. So if you're on a PC, change this format to QuickTime. If you're on a Mac, leave it on QuickTime. So if you look through here, you can also save these as JPEG sequences. You can just export the audio if it has audio. There's a lot of different things you can do here, but for QuickTime, that's what we're going to work with. It's going to say, what should your video output settings be? Right now, it's using something called the animation codec. The animation codec, again, creates massive files, but you don't lose any quality. It's the highest quality video you can get. But again, super, super massive. So we don't want to have that happen for us. We just want to be able to make this a smaller file to show a friend or a teacher or whatever we're going to do with this particular project. So we'll click Format Options, and we're going to change the codec to H.264. Again, there's a lot of different types of codecs. You can even export them as JPEGs, etc. But H.264 is going to give you the most bang for your buck, again, in terms of file size and quality. So you can choose if you want to lower the quality here, but I'm okay with 100% quality, and click OK. And then in terms of resize right now, because our comp was set at 1920 by 1080 and that's high definition, it's going to work perfectly for YouTube. So if this is where you're intending it to go onto YouTube, leave it at that particular size. If you're sending this as just a preview to somebody and you need a smaller file size and you don't care if it's like filling the entire screen, you can click resize here and let's just do 800. So it's automatically going to try to keep the aspect ratio of 16:9, so it'll automatically change the height to match the ratio of whatever your new width is. So that's fine for me because again, this is just a draft version of this video I'm going to send to somebody. So I'll go ahead and click OK, and the last thing we need to do is change the output. Now, if you've already changed the output previously, it's going to automatically send all of your videos to that same place unless you change it. Also, if you've never set it, it will not let you press render until you tell it what it should be called and where it should save it to. So I'll go ahead and click on this, and let's say I want to put my last name and I want to call this name FX. So this is the name of the file. That's one thing it needs to know when it saves something, and then it needs to know where do you want to save it to. So I'll save it in this names project folder, and I think this is going to work pretty good. So now that it knows what it should be called and where it should go, I can click save and it'll show that name right there. And now I'm ready to render. So I'll click render, and depending how long it is, how intense it is, exactly how many files you have in it, it could take a long time or it could go really short. So as you see this progress bar, you'll notice that for a 30-second video, it is kind of taking a long time for my particular project to go. If for some reason it looks like it stalls out, don't panic, don't shut it off, don't like Control-Alt-Delete or Command-Option-Escape to try to restart it and whatnot. Just let it go. If it's an obscenely long time and you don't see any progress, then yeah, maybe you need to force it to quit. Which brings up a good point. Before you render, you should definitely save. And you should definitely be saving throughout your project because this is an intense software program and it uses a lot of resources, and it could freeze your computer if you don't have enough RAM or a good video card or whatever it may be. So as this renders out, it's gonna keep going all the way through. So I can go ahead and open this project folder, and there's my project folder. And you'll see that I have this preview that I created earlier, but this one, the Eddington Name Effects, it has this weird little QuickTime icon because even though it is exporting out, this isn't ready yet. See how it says 0 bytes? Because it is working on it right now, but it's not ready to go. So as soon as it's ready to go, I should see a preview of it here. So I can go ahead and make this a lot bigger in that regard. So as you can see, this one that I did earlier is just fine. This one, it's not ready to go yet. So let's see where it's at. It's almost there. So once it's done rendering, you can check it, play it, see if it works, and if it doesn't, then come over here, go back up to File, Export, Render Queue, change some of your settings, and again, it really depends. Your settings will really depend on what you're intending to do with this particular video at this particular time. This might be just a working version that you want to be lower quality and a smaller size, but eventually you're going to need to export it as a full 1920 by 1080 using H.264 for YouTube, or you intend to go into Premiere Pro and you want to add it to your movie. Then you need animation codec so that you don't lose any quality at all and you're okay with it being a massive file size. So now that that's done rendering, we can come in here and we can look, and now we see a preview. It's 26.4. So again, it's still a tiny little video and it's only 30 seconds, but it's already 26 megabytes. But I can test it out, and it's always a good idea to test it all the way through and make sure everything works and there wasn't anything weird in it. So that looks okay. A good thing about this render queue is that it will keep the information, what settings you used each time. So if for some reason that setting didn't work, you can go to render queue again, but now you can look here and see what didn't work for this particular project.